All right, welcome to another Precise Language podcast. I'm here with one of my great friends, Tripp. Tripp has a YouTube channel, Tripp Advice for Men, and actually that's how I got to know you. Is I was actually a follower of your work before we ever became friends, and and Tripp, I really admire your coaching. I mean, you're a fantastic coach, not just for dating, but for life, for confidence. I've been following your Fearless Formula your Fearless Formula program that you're putting together, and it's rock solid content. I get the privilege to have one-on-one conversations with you, but I still find so much value in those courses. So
Thank you, man.
So I wanted to get together with you today, as we have done some precise language sessions. You really helped me, try to flesh out these ideas of precise language, and I just wanted to have a conversation with you on the usefulness that you find in it, and your experiences, and how it's given you, clarity, or kind of answers to some struggles that you've gone through.
Yeah, I mean, I think you just said it right there. The number one thing for me with precise language and the whole process that you go through is clarity. And I think that the whole process that we do, we're using your tools of precise language. So it helps you kind of speak in a way that allows you to think in a different way. And then when you're thinking a different way, you open up your mind to new ideas, and that allows you to understand yourself better and understand your wants and desires and needs, and more importantly, your problems and what's going on in your life. Because I'm sure if someone's doing a precise language session with you, it's probably because they have something going on in their life that's not to where they want it to be. So it's that clarity that really helped me the most. And we've done it, I think, at least 2 times, maybe 3 times at this point.
Yeah.
And I mean, every time it's super helpful in understanding what the area is that you are trying to solve, and also what you really want and what you're looking for. Because I think when it comes to goal setting, and I know that you talk about this a lot, is that you need to know what you want. And when you know what you want, then it's easier to set goals, right? If you know the destination, then you can make the map to get there. But the problem is, for a lot of people, is they don't know what they want, or they don't know what their problem is. So they don't have the right map. So I feel like with precise language, you are creating that map that they can hold in their hands and say, okay, I know where to go now, and I have the route to get there. So that's kind of like the analogy I see of what precise language does.
Yeah, as I was listening to your course yesterday, you talk about awareness, like just simply being aware of who you are, what you've got going on, and really like what your choices are. And I found that, especially like in the specific sessions that we've done together, it's really understanding that you always have a choice. Always. There's always choice A and choice B. And sometimes we feel stuck because we don't see that there's 2 choices. We kind of just see like, I guess I'm just kind of stuck here, or there is no answer. And it really gives you the power to, like you said, put it in front of your face and be aware of what your options are.
Right, exactly. And that's what helps a lot. And it's also awareness of your emotions and how you're feeling. And I think that is the most difficult. I think that we as people become so consumed by our emotions that we're not aware that we're having them. And so we get so sucked in that we don't even know that there's a problem to solve. So look, for example, you might wake up, you might feel anxious, or you might feel depressed, or throughout the day you might feel kind of like crappy, and you feel crappy, and you're aware that you don't feel good, but that's like step 1. But like step 2 is even further outside of that, and looking at yourself and saying and labeling, wow, I feel this emotion right now. Okay, I've noticed that I felt this emotion, well, in this current moment. I felt it this morning. I felt it for the past few days. This is something that goes away at this point. Sometimes I don't have it when this is happening. Sometimes I have it when this is happening. And you're kind of looking at it and figuring out, where it's coming up in your life. And that is awareness. And then you can put a label on it if you want, depending on what that emotion is. Or you can connect it to what is deriving that negative emotion. So maybe it's, when you go to work and you don't like your job, or maybe it's when you go home and you realize you don't have a girlfriend and you feel really lonely, or when you look at your bank account, you're like, oh man, I'm $3,000 in debt. It's like those moments, you go through it and you're like, oh, this is painful, but we don't take a step back and look at that pain. So this is just kind of like mindfulness techniques of being like aware of that. So I think one of the things that I was talking about yesterday in my Fearless Formula was being aware of all of that, so then you can work on trying to solve it. And I think that your precise language does that. It makes you become aware. It forces you to become aware of what's going on, because you are asking the types of questions that help you look more analytically at your life to see what's going on.
Right, and when you speak in vague language, like this will never happen, or I don't know what to do, or it's not this, it's not that. When you can't make something tangible, it's impossible to be able to do something with it. And one of the things that is the hardest to make tangible is emotions. I mean, it's easy to make logical things tangible. Should I do this? Should I do that? But like how you're feeling about it is really the guide. How your feelings are your compass as to whether you should continue to do something or not continue to do something. But it's a super emotions are complicated. You know what I mean? And a lot of them they're not just singular. They come in like a cocktail of a bunch of different emotions. And in order to grab a hold of your life, take control, get what you want, you have to be able to observe it first. And we use language as a way to observe our own minds. We're the only creatures that do it. But when we misuse it, we really just become talking animals. We're impulsive and we just act on our emotions without actually analyzing something that's kind of intangible. And that's what precise language does.
Yeah, I think it also too is what it does is it allows you to do this process that's called dialectical thinking, something I just learned about. And this idea that, we say things out loud or to ourselves that we think are 100% true, but in reality, they're not, right? So here's an example of that. You might be doing something at work and you make a mistake. And then you say to yourself, I'm such an idiot, right? Well, the first step is having awareness into that of like, wow, I just called myself an idiot. And then kind of questioning that, like, is that true? Am I an idiot? Well, am I an idiot all the time? Okay, maybe sometimes an idiot, but there's been plenty of times that I'm not an idiot, right? So this is the idea of dialectical thinking, which really reminds me of kind of what you do when you, with precise language, you take out, what is it, negative words?
You take out void language, everything that's...
Void language.
Yeah, right.
Right, so void language. And I think that's kind of similar to dialectical thinking, where you're taking out void language because it's just, I'm going to use void language as I say this.
Right.
It's just not true.
Right.
It's not true, the things that you might say. What would be an example of, maybe you've done a lot of sessions. What is something that someone says that's where they're using negative or void language?
Yeah, you know what? I had a text from my sister where I noticed some language that she had. She was wanting to start a group for women, kind of doing coaching and yoga at the same time, and I asked her, what's standing in your way, right? And she says, I'm lacking confidence and direction. And lack is a void, because you always have something. In speaking clear language is speaking in universal truth. Everything is something and somewhere. Everything is moving all the time, and everything is true from some perspective, from some angle. So when you say like I lack confidence, well, you have confidence in something. So when she's trying to get the motivation and the direction to take action on her business plan idea, when she says I lack confidence, I say, well, you have confidence to do something. So what are you confident in doing? Well, she has confidence in her yoga training. Well, okay, how can we translate that? Then we say, how can we translate what you do in yoga for an online program. And then this gets the conversation rolling, and it turns out that she has more confidence in herself than she thought. But because she used the language, I lack confidence, the progress just stops right there. And that's the danger of using void language, because you always have something. There is always an option. But when you use language that reflects that it isn't, it's a lie, because you always have something. You always have some level of confidence. I mean, you have confidence to text. That's how you get. I mean, you can bring it down to its lowest denominator and build from there.
Yeah, I also think too is that. So, what did she say? She said, "I lack confidence in what?"
I'm lacking confidence in direction. I fear that it won't. And I asked her, what does lack of confidence mean? She says, I fear that it won't be successful or help anybody.
Right. Okay. So what I see is that the problem with that language is that it's not useful in getting to where she wants to go. Right. So the real problem isn't confidence. There's something else. So I think precise language can uncover what the real problem is, right? It's like, it's not. So I'll give an example in terms of what I teach in terms of helping out guys, right? So guys say they lack confidence, right? And that's not the real problem. And there could be a lot of different problems, of why that's the issue. But the real problem, for example, could be, it's not that they lack confidence, but they don't have yet the tools to know what to do to go up and speak to a woman, because that's where they think they lack confidence. So, it's not like confidence is intangible. So if someone says I lack confidence, well then logically it would be like, well then we got to give you the confidence to be able to make the next step. But you can't do that. I can't hand someone a box of confidence. Right. Maybe I can say a few things that motivate them a little bit, but it's not going to solve the problem. So here it's like we bring it to the tangible world and say, okay, well, confidence isn't the issue. The issue is, and then you do precise language, or you just dive really deep and figure out, they just don't know what to say to a girl. Okay, that's fine. And so then we work on, well, what's the first thing you could say, right? So now we're working in very tangible terms here, because they can speak something and go over and talk to them. So that's kind of the real issue. Or if we dive even much deeper, a lack of confidence usually comes from low self-esteem, which comes from something that happened in childhood, or something that's happening right now that's causing them to not feel confident. But it always comes back to the real world somewhere, because something is causing the lack of self-esteem. Something somewhere, whether it was when they were 5 years old or when they were in their teenage years, or something that happened recently. So you kind of got to go and dive deep into those situations.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the benefits of a coach, or I'd say the biggest benefit of a coach, is helping others. A coach helps others ask the right questions. Because if one of your students comes up to you and says, hey Tripp, I lack confidence, well, there's not much you can do at that with that request. You are the one that, as the coach, has to kind of dig in and figure out really what that is. And what precise language allows you to do is it allows you to essentially coach yourself. And when it comes to manifestation, I think a lot of the story of Aladdin, because that's actually a symbolic story of manifestation. You rub the genie, and then you make a wish, and your wish is my command. But here's the problem. The problem with the wish maker is in vague language, because like King Midas wished that everything he touched turned to gold. Should have been more specific, right? And so back to my point of when a student comes up to you and says, I lack confidence, if he could ask a better question, he could then find that answer himself. So I lack confidence. Well, you have something. You have confidence in something, so that's not the issue. So what do you need? Okay, now it's more tangible. Okay, so like you said, I need the tool. I need the verbal tools to know what to say to a woman. Okay, now we can start to progress. Excellent. Where do you feel that you struggle the most? Well, I can start a conversation, but I get these awkward silences that make me feel very nervous. And now that he's speaking precisely to that problem, now the solution is, well, okay, how do we figure out how do we figure out, or what exercise or tools can we use in order to get you to be able to continue to have a conversation or embrace those awkward silences?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. That's good. I'm curious too, for you, have you ever had a client where you're working with them and you weren't able to pinpoint what the problem was?
No.
And that's the beauty of precise language.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And what's really great about it, and what works that with many of the clients that I have, we start with the 8 weeks of precise language training, or like the invincible training, where I teach all of those modalities of time boxing, your 5s and 5s, the precise language, and all of that, which and then we practice that for a couple of months. But what's really great, as I continue to have relationships with my clients, that the solutions to the problems come so quick when you know how to speak precisely, when you know how to talk to the external world, whether it's a coach, whether it's Google, whether it's a book, and you know how to pinpoint those answers yourself, or at least get really close to it. So then you bring in a third party, and a coach or a mentor, or just someone who understands how to ask good questions, and you can make progress so much faster and at an accelerated rate using this tool.
Right. I think that's the whole point, right? And that's the whole point of coaching, is you're getting coaching and you're working with different tools, and in this case, precise language, to make everything much faster. I remember when I was doing a lot more coaching, like every single weekend, taking out guys, and before I signed them in for coaching, what I would do is I would, I wish I had a piece of paper here where I could show you, but I'll just kind of show you on this book, right? So the pen is a piece of paper. I would do a little dot here, a little dot here, and then I would write A and B. Okay, so dot A, dot B. Do you know where I'm going with this yet?
Yeah, with like essentially drawing a map of point A to point B?
Yeah, exactly. So I would always ask them, what is the quickest way from point A to point B? And about half would kind of get it right. The other half would say something like along the lines of the coaching. They'd be like, oh, well, I need to learn this, this, and this. And I'd be like, no, you're thinking too hard here. What is the fastest way from any point A to any point B? Spencer, do you know the answer?
Straight line.
Very good. Straight line, right? So then I kind of give them the diagram and I say, all right, so this represents the coaching that we're going to be doing together.
Right.
Okay. And then I kind of make another line where I say, let's do not a straight line, like a curve, like this. It goes like this, right? And if you were to measure this curved line versus a straight line, well, faster will be the straight line. So I say, if you do it on your own, I'm not saying you can't get there. Right. I'm not going to be like, you need this coaching or you're screwed. Like, no, let's be honest. Of course you can get to point B. But the honest answer is, it's going to take you a lot longer. So this is why you get help in the form of coaching, in the form of learning, whatever it is. But the fastest way to get from point A to point B, now talking about, in terms of coaching, is the actual coaching process itself. Having someone hold your hand through the whole process. You can learn it on your own. You can get there. But the best thing is to hire someone. In fact, I think tomorrow I have a YouTube video that's coming out where I talk about that. I talk about this mistake that I made, or not mistake that I made, this lesson that I learned. That was, I was working on my accounting, and since I have a corporation, I get all kinds of tax documents, and I'm tax illiterate. Like, I just really have a hard time wrapping my head around how taxes work, and it takes me a long time to understand it. So I had a pile of tax documents, and I'm like, this is just so much, and it would stress me out. So it stressed me out so much that I'd say, I'm putting this to the bottom of my priority list, and I would leave it. So what happens when something gets to the bottom of your priority list? Well, it keeps on stacking up and stacking up. So now I'm getting even more stressed. And I said, you know what? There are people who are experts at this, and this is people who are accountants, right? They help you with this stuff. So I said, enough of this. I'm going to get on the phone with my accountant and figure this out. So got on the phone with my accountant, and she was very unhelpful, and it seemed like she was putting more of the work on me, which is exactly what I didn't want to do. I was like, I just need you to handle this. And it wasn't working out. So right then and there, I fired her, okay? I got off the phone with her, and then I decided, okay, I need to fire this woman. So I fired her, even though I was working with her for a couple of years. And I went to another accountant who's a friend of mine, and I said, listen, man, I just fired my accountant because she's not doing the exact thing I need done. He's like, what do you need? I'm like, I need someone to just handle this for me because I don't know how to handle this, and you're an expert and you know how to do it. So I will pay you. Just let me send you all the documents and you handle it and just tell me exactly what you need. And he said, done. So yeah, it's costing more money, but this is an investment in my time and in my stress and energy. Now I know I have someone who's going to be doing this for me. It's going to be done correctly. I don't have to deal with it, and everything is going to go like it needs to be. So what does that do? That saves me stress and that saves me time, all because I hired someone to do it. So this is like my lessons. I have to do this more in my life, and I don't do it enough. So but what's the first step here? Exactly what we're talking about, being aware, right? I wasn't aware of that for so long. I had these tax documents piled up, and I wasn't thinking about it. All I was thinking about is the stress that it was causing me. But I became, I kind of took a deep dive and I said, how can I solve this? I became more aware of the problem, did some analytical thinking, and I said, well, okay, I came to the conclusion to solve this problem in the best of my ability is to get someone to do it and pay them to do it for me. So, that's what it takes. So really two lessons in one here is one, the idea of how important it is to become aware of what is stressing you out or causing problems in your life. And lesson two is to get someone who's better than you to help you through it. In this case, it's kind of nice because I don't need to really learn it. I can just have the accountant do it for me. In this case, as you as a coach, it's not really like that. It's not like you going and doing things and then the person's already magically good. Like you guys have to work together, but still, it's about getting people who are better than you and investing in that to get to the point that's quicker. Right now, my taxes are going to be done quicker. It's all going to be quick. And by the way, I was piling up like all these fees because I wasn't doing quick enough. So everything was just compounding terribly. That's the same thing with someone who has a problem that's coming to you, Spencer. Is they have some stress in their life. They have some negative emotions. And what happens is it becomes exponential. It doesn't just it's not linear where it's just like a line like this where it just stays really bad. It gets kind of exponentially worse and worse and worse and worse because if you have all these negative emotions, it's causing things in your life to not go well, which is then going to be a ripple effect into other things in your life, which is going to cause even more stress. And then more stress is going to cause more things to go wrong. And then you could end up in a very bad place. So time is of the essence, and it's the most valuable thing that we have, really.
Absolutely. And I use the same analogy. I tell people, like, if you're a relatively successful, hardworking person, you will get from point A to point B eventually. And I find it interesting is I know that the thing that I'm most protective of is my time. I'm super, super generous in every other area of my life, but time cannot be purchased. But if you think about it, when you hire a coach or a consultant or someone who has that knowledge in that area, you are buying time. It's the only thing that actually buys you time, because think about how much how much time it would take for you to learn taxes and then to actually do them. And so what you're doing instead is you're taking you first of all realize that there was a problem and found a solution, which that was the second lesson or the first lesson that you talked about. But I'll dive into that for a moment. When those taxes pile up, so what happens is tax bill comes, you take action. Take action to put it in the pile. That pile causes an emotion, and that emotion comes to a conclusion of, I don't know how to deal with this shit, so and then it goes to a decision, I'm going to let it sit. Another bill comes, I don't know how to deal with this, so I'm going to let it sit. And then that starts building and building. But don't is avoid. So you're always I'm not going to do anything about it. Not as avoid too. You are doing something about it. You're letting it pile up. And so if you use precise language and other techniques that I teach in the Invincible Academy, such as your 5 and 5, which is your daily meditation to create awareness around whatever's going on in your life, and you were to ask yourself the question of, say, I'm feeling anxious about this tax stuff, and then you simply ask yourself a constructive one of the 5 questions, like, what's standing in your way from getting this done? Okay, well, now we can progress. And instead of going in that loop, I don't know how to do it, I'm just going to let it sit. I don't know how to do it, I'm going to let it sit. What do you need? I need to know how to do my taxes. Okay, well, how could you figure that out? Well, what are the options? You go to YouTube and learn some stuff. You can read a book. You can go to school. You go back to college and get your CPA or whatever, or you can find a way to delegate it. Okay, what type of person can you delegate this to? Your accountant. So you go to your accountant and you say, I need X, Y, and Z done. And she comes back and she's putting the stress on you. And then you go back into the loop. I don't know how to do this, so I'm just going to let it sit. Instead, you were like, no, I need someone to do this. And then you went and you asked an expert with clear and precise language. Here's exactly what I need done. How can you help me? And that's what ended up solving your problem. It's all about progress. And when you kind of have that point A to point B, there's so many tricks that your mind plays on you that to stop you from going in that straight line. Sometimes you go in that straight line and then you'll get distracted and go on a tangent, and all of a sudden you're moving, but 90 degrees from where you're actually supposed to go. You backslide, where you make progress and then you go back into old ways. You get into loops where it's like, I don't know how to do this, I'm going to let it sit. It comes by, I don't know how to do this, it's going to let it sit. And what precise language really is about is guaranteed perpetual progress. Even if it's 1 inch, it is 1 inch precisely in that one direction. And so every time you engage with it using language, that's how we engage with everything, whether it's a conversation in our mind or outwardly, you're guaranteed to make progress as long as you bring awareness to it and use your language precisely, mindfully with precision.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. We another thing I wanted to touch on for a moment is sometimes precise language is necessary for a problem that you're having, that's been giving you depression or anxiety or just dissatisfaction in life. Sometimes it's for clarity, as in I don't even know what I'm doing with my life. I don't know what's next for me. All I know is I got to start making moves because life is getting stale, or it's getting worse. And one of the things that so I kind of call that more transformation. So there's problem solving, there's transformation, and then there's breakthrough, which is kind of what me and you worked on. You were as your life and your career and all of your travels and stuff are coming up. There's a lot of decisions to make, and life continues to move whether you make choices or not. And
right.
We got to the point where it's like, well, I need to make some choices because life's moving along with or without me. And so how do I best see really what my opportunities are in each area? And then so you can kind of plot that out and actually see it, and then look inside and say, what's really important to me in this moment of my life right now? So not just in general, but overall. And I found that in our the biggest benefit, at least that I saw for you in the sessions that we did, was really just to see the opportunities, get it out there, see what you really want, so you can make a confident decision, because you're always making some decision, and that's really what it's about, making a confident decision. And in any precise language session that I do, I never tell you what to do. I very rarely even give you my point of view of what I think is best for you. It's merely just to referee the conversation with yourself, so you can make confident and wise choices.
Right. You're basically facilitating a process for someone to discover on their own what their issue is and how they can solve it and how they can start the process of getting to the place where they need to be. Because at the end of the day, I think we all kind of know inside what we need to do. I mean, of course, you can always ask someone advice. It's the thing is this, it's you help them discover that. And then they might get to the point where okay, now I know my path. And then they can maybe talk to you, but they can go find another expert to help them on their path of what they just figured out they need to do. It's okay, now I know I need to, I don't know, buy a house, right?
Right.
And I got to figure out my finances. So who are you gonna call? Not the Ghostbusters, but you're gonna call someone who's gonna help you with, who knows about real estate or knows about, working with your finances or whatever the issue is, right? Maybe. Right. I'm not saying you have to do that, but But if you want that process to go faster, it's probably good to do that, or or whatever. Maybe it's something you already know, and maybe you end up having a precise language session where you're like, well, geez, I know how to do that. I know I know where to go and I know where to start. So this is fine for me. I know what my next step is, or not. Well, you'll know what the next step to the precise language is, but then you'll know the next step in terms of like how to get to that goal faster, whatever it is that you've kind of figured out with you, Spencer.
Yeah, and the kind of the next level of development for adults, men and women, is becoming enlightened, is essentially self-coaching, self-parenting is what it is. And really what I try to do for my clients is I try to act as their general physician while I'm teaching them how to be a doctor. So eventually they could be their own general physician, but then when they need an orthopedic surgeon, they know how to ask the right questions to that professional. If they need a podiatrist, they know exactly the right questions to ask that person. Because a lot of people ask me like, well, who's my coach? And the answer is, I'm my coach. And then where do I go? Then by asking myself the right questions, I can go to the specific experts to get that unique help from them. In our mastermind group that we have, I go to each one of you guys for different things because I know that you have, everyone's got brilliance in their own particular areas, but because I can interact with my thoughts and my emotions directly, I can kind of play that general practitioner role for myself.
Right. And that's that's super helpful. And what's awesome about these days, the internet and the rise of the coaching movement, is that you can go, no pun intended here, but you can go more precise right, with who you want to help you with something. So here's an example, right? You can hire someone to help you. You can hire a fitness what do they call fitness coach? No,
a personal trainer.
Personal trainer, right? I haven't had a personal trainer in a while, as you can see. So you can hire a personal trainer that's going to overall help you with whatever, losing weight and just getting into the gym and just kind of holding you accountable to get there and just pushing you through, the sets and reps. But if you wanted to go even deeper, you could find a nutritional coach that will help you in your exact goals. You could probably even go deeper and find someone who does a specific type of personal training that's specific to your goals. That's not just a general personal trainer, but someone who works on, I don't know, for example, one type of workout is called starting strength, which is like a whole niche of people who do certain exercises. Right. So then you can do that. And I'm sure in any industry you can do that. Even like in the industry of dating advice and relationship advice, I mean, there's a coach for almost anything you can think of there. Anywhere from your current relationship to someone who's divorced, to if you're a 50-year-old woman who's been divorced, to a 19-year-old guy that just wants to, learn how to get a girlfriend. It's just like you can go as specific as possible, and it's possible to do that now with just the internet at our fingertips and so many people sharing their information and knowledge. And I feel like, Spencer, you're like ground zero. Like you're the place where people can start if they don't know where to go, and it's like your step one, and then after that, depending on what their goals are, they can move on and figure that out.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying. You can niche down all the way down. They've got sexual surrogates now. Have you heard of that?
Yes, I have.
So you can get really specific, and kind of my purpose with the Invincible Academy is to be that ground zero that teaches how to attain wisdom. And there's really two different types of intelligence. There's knowledge and there's wisdom. And knowledge we're taught at school how to go out into the external world and bring information within and be able to use it. And then you have wisdom, which is how to find answers within and bring them out to the outside world. So coaches wisdom is what Google can't do. Google can't take a look at you from a different angle and ask you a question on you based on your emotions. It can give you the answer to anything as long as you know how to interact with it using language. And so that's really my goal with people, is to teach them how to have that internal conversation with themselves and therefore then with the world around them, so they can gain access to what's inside, so then they can be more empowered to go find all of the niche information that they need. But again, if you rub the genie but you don't know what to ask, it's impossible. All the coaches in the world can't help you. They can't. You need to be like, your job is to tell them what's in here, and so many people don't know how to do that, and they usually fail by failing the first step of precise language, which is to speak up. Actually, when you feel something, say something, and then it goes into speaking clear and speaking precise, not to be confused with speaking positively, because negative emotions are very, very useful. So for the people who don't really quite get precise language, it doesn't mean negativity, or staying positive all the time. It's just about addressing what's real.
Right.
So that's that really is the intention with the Invincible Academy, is give people the tools to be able and go out and get answers. Because when you learn the tools of being an outstanding, precise, efficient problem solver, that is one single skill that makes you better at every single thing in your life. And I mean, that's the holy grail of skill sets. If you understand how to mastery itself, well, then anything that you point in, when you point in any direction, you will progress and succeed in that area, because you know how to interact with the world around you.
Right. Step 1, Spencer. Step 2, Google.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
Step 3, profit.
Right. Step 1, Spencer. Step 2, talk to yourself. Step 3, is Google. The part where you talk about awareness is really where this whole thing starts. Whenever I start with a student or a client, I have them do a personal inventory assessment where they go through every area in their life, where I call it the mansion of your mind, where you walk in the room of relationships and you see what's there, what you like, what you don't like, what you see could be better, what you see that's broken. You go into the room of your finances and you do the same thing. You go in the room of your physical health. You go into your romantic relationships, into like your life's passion, your productivity, and you essentially turn on the lights in all of those rooms and take an inventory of, hey, this is great. Hey, this room this area could use a rehaul, or maybe this room is so destroyed that it's affecting all the other rooms in the house. And so it's really important to call mindfulness and awareness to what's going on in your life, so you can pinpoint those exact things that you want to improve. And then I go in and do the strategy session with them, where we help point your compass precisely in the direction of the thing that you want to improve, and then give actionable steps that are do's or don'ts. They're check boxes. And if you check that box and take action, then it's only a matter of time before you get that thing that you want. And that's the process. That's the initial process that I really try to set people up with, to show you that you can always be moving towards your goal. And that's ultimately what we're chasing. We're not really chasing the end game, because once we get the end game, we suddenly want something more. So truly what we're chasing is the excitement of progress. And I find that when people use precise language, since there's always progress, it helps your self-esteem, your overall enjoyment of life, and really helps you embrace not just the great things, but all of the nuances that make up your story.
Yeah, I think really, they say focus on the journey and not the end result. Right. That cliche. Well, I think I bring a whole new meaning to it as we kind of talk here. It's like you're gonna be, the happiness level that you're gonna be at is gonna be much more in the journey than the end result, which is what you don't know yet, right? Logically, you think, oh, I need to, if your goal is to get $10,000, let's say, when you get $10,000, you'll be very happy, but you're actually going to be very, very happy going through the journey of trying to accomplish it, because all those little mini accomplishments to get to the goal where you need to go is going to feel actually way better than getting to that point. Another example could be like losing 20 pounds. That whole process of like, I just lost 3 pounds, now I'm at 7, 10, like that whole journey, you're feeling amazing. It's not like you're going to be like feeling like crap all the way until you finally reach the goal. So I think that's my kind of interpretation of like, whatever the cliche is of enjoy the journey, and don't focus on the end result. It's like, well, logically, like you will be happy going through that journey. Like making the progress, like you're saying, is what feels amazing, and you just keep on progressing until the day you die. You know what I mean? Like learning and growing until you're off of the earth, and that's what's going to make really a happy life. And there's plenty of areas that you can do that in.
Yeah. And, that transition really happens, I find, like in adulthood, when you realize that life is not a noun, it's a verb. And when you feel like life is a noun, you want things, you want accomplishment, but there's only so much joy in that because joy fades. And, I kind of put it mathematically in terms of joy. Like when the Cubs won the World Series, there were 100 units of happiness in those like 2 weeks afterwards, right? So, but every game that the Cubs won, at least for my family, my dad's a huge Cubs fan. Every game that they won around 100 games. There was not 100 units of joy, but maybe 5 units of joy in each game that they won. So if you take a look at the path and the overall units of joy, there was 500 units in the journey, in those little joy bombs of winning, getting one step closer, than there was in the actual winning of the World Series. And that's really what the Invincible program's all about, is acknowledging those little bursts of joy, collecting them and building that momentum. That's where you get the confidence. That's where you get the happiness. That's where you get the fulfillment. That's where you get that feeling of invincibility, because you're always, there's never more than one day where you're feeling like garbage, because every day is a new day of progress.
Right. Exactly. I love it, man. Awesome.
Yeah, dude. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate your friendship, your coaching for me, because I know you helped me through a lot of stuff. And if any of you guys are interested in doing one of those strategy sessions where we do that personal inventory, I'm going to leave a link below in the description for you to sign up. It's completely free, and you do that assessment. It takes about 45 minutes because it's a little bit in depth, and then you do a one-on-one strategy session with me so we can get that compass pointed due north and then give you actionable steps so you can be making progress every single day. So, Tripp, thanks again for being on the podcast, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. And I just got to say, like I said earlier, is that I've done about 3 of these sessions, and every single time I take something away. In fact, I probably have to do one again soon. So I highly recommend it. It's a great process. You will walk away with something that's going to be very useful for you in terms of whatever you're going through in your life. So again, you have my vote, and it's a great place to start if you're looking to figure out what you need to solve in your life.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, buddy. And if you guys liked this video, be sure to smash that thumbs up button. And if you want to stay up to date with the videos that I post every week, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you get updates on your phone and in your email for when we launch new videos. Once again, Tripp, thanks again for being on the podcast. And this is Spencer Burnett with the Invincible Academy. Wow.
Thanks.